Young kids are forced, I think, or they want to be successful. They have to choose a sport at such a young age, and it's a really young age. I'm so surprised at it because obviously I'm into coaching now, and these kids are, pursuing one sport at probably the age of 9 or 10, and they're told from their coaches or associations, well, if you want to be successful in this sport, you need to do it 12 months of the year, and I totally disagree with that. I do sometimes think that it's more about the money and these camps and coaches. They're making money off of these people and because they're saying, well, you need the extra training. Well, you need to come to me and do power skating. You need to go to a shooting coach. You need to go to a stick handling coach. And the cost of it is just unbelievable. And I really don't know how parents can afford it. But this is the pressure that the parents put on the kids because they do tell them, listen, I'm remortgaging the house or I'm doing this. You better perform. And the kids are like 10, 11 years old. They don't need that pressure. And this is where all the mental health starts to click in. I mean, you look at the fights in the stands now with parents, like it's unbelievable. Like it's just this generation it's just crazy. And it's really sad. The parents that are like that, that's how they parent in general. I just feel some kids, they start training at a young age and it's overtraining and they get burnt out and they quit because the love of the game's gone. And at that age, it should be all about having fun.
As a child, Geraldine Heaney was on the ice every opportunity she had, despite there being no pathway for girls in hockey. And yet, when looking at today's youth hockey environment, Geraldine would be the first to tell you that kids would be a lot better off with a little less ice time. Hey there, I'm Scott Rentoul, and this is Better Sports Parents, a podcast dedicated to helping you, me, and everyone else out there become a better sports parent through conversations with world-class performers across the sports landscape who offer their insight and perspective on today's youth sporting environment and parenting. Geraldine Heaney has a view of all of it. As far as an athlete goes, she is as accomplished as you will find in the world of hockey. 7 World Hockey Championships with Team Canada, and she scored the first game-winning goal in that tournament's history. She also got an Olympic gold in 2002 in Salt Lake and has been inducted to the IIHF Hockey Hall of Fame and the Hockey Hall of Fame itself. She is certainly a pioneer in the sport, and she took that into coaching at the professional ranks, university level, and she has coached youth hockey along the way as well. She's also a wife, a mother of 2, and she currently coaches youth hockey. So she has a great view on today's youth sports environment, and she's here to share it with you on this episode of Better Sports Parents. Geraldine Heaney, thank you very much for doing this and spending time with us here on Better Sports Parents.
Oh, no, thanks for having me. I think it's a good topic to talk about, obviously, with me coaching now. So I think it's great that it gets out there.
Well, and you've seen it with both of your children as well. And while the bulk of this conversation will focus on youth sports, I'd be remiss if I didn't start with this because you're someone who built the foundation of women's hockey at the highest level. What has it been like to witness the rapid ascent of the PWHL and professional hockey on the women's side over the past few years?
Oh, it's unbelievable. I never thought it'd be in my lifetime that I'd ever get to see it. Unfortunately, it didn't happen a little sooner. It would have been nice to be able to play in it, but just being a pioneer and being part of the growth of the game is a great accomplishment for myself. And there's a lot of women before me that don't really get recognized for what they did for even to get myself playing women's hockey. There's a lot of people that these players today should be thankful for, and I just think it's great that these young girls nowadays, they can go to the rink and aspire to playing, not just the national team, because that's all it was for the last, I'd say, 20 years was either you make the national team or that was it. And, more or less your career is over. But now they have a goal that they can play a lot longer and play professionally and make a little bit of money out of it right now. Obviously, the salaries will eventually go up and, maybe the women will be able to stick around and play a lot longer.
Well, and the communities in which the PWHL is flourishing right now are certainly embracing them. There's just a really nice relationship that is developing. And as you said, it would have been nice if it happened a little bit sooner because you would have had that opportunity. But you helped build this for the women of today. They now have all of these women to look up to. And I'm talking young kids, the ones you see, to aspire to be them. You didn't have that. You didn't have that person who was the next Geraldine Heaney. How did you get started in hockey?
Well, it's really funny because, my parents grew up in Northern Ireland, and I was born in Northern Ireland, and we immigrated to Canada when I was only a year. And my dad came to Canada first just to get settled and get a job and make some living arrangements because we only had my aunt that was living here in Canada. And he was introduced to ice hockey. He's My parents never even seen the game, they never heard of the game before, so it's very ironic that I ended up playing a game that they knew nothing about. And sometimes I think that was better, for myself. So I remember when my mom tells a story that when she first came over, she had to bring 3 of us, 3 kids. There was 5 in the total in the family. 2 were born in Canada and 3 of us in Ireland. And she remembers the first Saturday night, my dad's like, "Okay, everybody, you have to sit down. We're watching Hockey Night in Canada." My mom's like, "Oh, okay." So she sits down and she starts watching and she goes, "This is what we came to Canada for?" So it's pretty funny, and I'll tell you right now, you'll never meet a bigger hockey fan or a bigger Leaf fan than my mom. So, she fell in love with the game very quickly, and so did all of the kids. All 5 of us ended up playing. But I think, at the time, it was a different generation. Girls didn't play hockey really when I played. I really didn't grow up with a lot of girlfriends. I hung out with my brother and his friends, and I just loved getting out there and playing with them. They started putting me in net first, which I really didn't care. I loved playing goalie. That was fine. So I just, my brothers started playing hockey. I was always at the rink. I was always playing outside, but there was never really any girls' teams around to play on. So I remember always bugging my dad, "Well, why can't I play?" Because I didn't understand that this wasn't for girls, it was only for boys. Because I never thought of it that way, and I was never really told that. So my dad, they were very supportive, and I remember he kept looking in the newspapers and he found an advertisement, looking for, girl hockey players interested in playing because at that time, the girls weren't allowed to play with the boys. So we either had to find a girls' team or you don't play at all. So when I first started, we found a team, but I was playing with girls that were like 4 and 5 years older than me. And I remember my dad taking me to one of the practices and he says, "Well, do you think you could play on that team?" I'm like, "Well, yeah, for sure I could." Because I played in the outdoor rinks. I was always playing and developed my skills myself and taught myself really how to skate. And I just loved the game. I think it was just the skating part of it, the speed of it. It's just obviously I fell in love with it and, excelled at it.
Well, the experience you described, playing on the outdoor rinks and just playing pickup hockey, if you will, is one that Canadians of a certain vintage will certainly relate to. Was that the only sport you were involved in, or were you playing a variety of sports at the time?
Oh, I played any sport. You could give me a racket or anything and I would try it. So, no, I played soccer with everyone says there's a summer sport. I played soccer. I played Gaelic football, which is an Irish game. Ended up touring, Ireland playing that as well. Played ball hockey, roller hockey. In high school, I played everything from volleyball, basketball, field hockey, badminton, like I said, any sport. I love tennis. The one sport I probably really didn't was probably baseball, but I would go out and throw a ball against a wall because I would watch baseball and I would say, I'd wanna be like a pitcher," and I would just go by myself and throw a ball against the wall and pretend I was a pitcher. So, like I said, I would watch any sport and I would want to try it, and, so I think that's what actually well, obviously is missing to today as a multi-sport athlete. I think it helped me so much in my in, like, being so successful in hockey.
How do you think it helped you? And I do want to get onto that second piece in a second about how it's missing a little bit in today's youth sport environment. But let's focus on you first. How do you believe multisport influenced what ended up being a Hall of Fame hockey career?
Well, hockey is, there's so many different skills involved. Like, I mean, in most sports, if we can all walk and run a bit, right? So there's so many skills in hockey. You have to be able to skate and just the eye-hand coordination. Like, I think there's so many aspects, and especially team sports, like soccer and basketball and roller hockey, field hockey, whatever. It's the same. It's like give and go support, eye-hand coordination. When I was playing, I would just take the puck and start flicking it in the air and kicking it in the air and batting it in the net. And I mean, you see all that kind of stuff now, but I just did it because I played other sports and I thought, oh, this is kind of neat. I'm just going to try this because I would do it in soccer. And, you use your feet a lot in hockey, and I could use my feet really well. And I remember I would get a teammate behind the net. And I just saw on YouTube there was this video of heading pucks into the net. And I did that years ago. I'd get a girl behind the net, flick it over here, and I just head it into the net, head it into the net. And that was like a long time. I know that won't count if it goes in, but I just thought, it's just something I would want to try. And again, being creative on my own. And that obviously, where you're getting at, a lot of the creativity is gone because everything's so structured.
Well, you make a really good point, and I do want to get to what you see in today's youth sport environment. You said multi-sport is missing. You said the creativity is gone a little bit. Why do you think that is?
Because I think the young kids are forced, I think, or if they wanna be successful, they have to choose a sport at such a young age, and it's a really young age. I'm so surprised at it because obviously I'm into coaching now, and these kids are, pursuing one sport at probably the age of 9 or 10, and they're told from their coaches or associations, "Well, if you wanna be successful in this sport, you need to do it 12 months of the year," and I totally disagree with that because like you said, and like I mentioned, me playing other sports helped me with the sport and helped me be successful in it. But I do sometimes think that it's more about the money and these camps and coaches. They're making money off of these people. And because they're saying, well, you need the extra training. Well, you need to come to me and do power skating. You need to go to a shooting coach. You need to go to a stick handling coach. And the cost of it is just unbelievable. And I really don't know how parents can afford it, but they do. But again, 12 months of the year, there's overscheduling, there's overtraining. And to me, it leads to burnout, and kids are going to quit. Like I kind of been through it myself when I did, was when I was training with the national team. And I remember when the only time I'd lost was in 1998. And well, we won silver, I suppose, but we lost the gold. And I remember going back home and I'm thinking, well, what could I have done differently? And I went on the ice right away. I trained all summer and I was like, okay. And then September came around, the season's starting up and tryouts for the national team. And I was like, oh my God, I don't even know if I want to do this anymore. I'm like, okay, if this love doesn't come back, I mean, why am I doing this? I've been to the Olympics, been world championships. I'm not making any money at it. So maybe it's time to move on. And I thought, okay, I'll give it one more year. And that following summer, I took the whole summer off away from the rink. I still continue to play sports right through my whole career. I played soccer, Gaelic football, roller hockey, whatever I continued doing. So I did train, but it wasn't on the ice. It wasn't hockey specific training. But like I said, me playing those other sports did help me. So I am training, but not that specific training. And like I said earlier there, I just feel some kids, they start training at a young age and it's overtraining and they get burnt out and they quit because the love of the game's gone. And at that age, it should be all about having fun.
I agree with you completely. And it's really interesting to get your coaching lens on this as well, because you've coached at the professional level, the university level, and currently you're coaching U18 girls. But I know you've coached younger than that with your daughter earlier in your coaching career as well. But you're seeing U18 girls right now. Can you see as a coach the difference between a player who has been in one structured environment, hockey, for her entire upbringing or most of it, compared to a child who has played different sports along the way? And if so, what does that look like at the level you're coaching right now?
Oh, absolutely. But it's going to be sad to say this, but there's not many. I'm doing the U18 AA, and that's the highest level for girls hockey here in Ontario. And I do believe it's actually watered down. So if I had to say on the team that I'm coaching now, maybe 3, but they only played maybe 1 or 2 other sports. It wasn't a big variety. I think, like I said, that's even long gone is the multi-sport athlete. I know some will play the odd sport maybe in high school, but coaches don't allow them. They'll say, "Well, you can't miss practice for a high school sport," or, and they don't allow it, and I can understand that. So if they want to play at that level, I guess that's a choice they're gonna have to make, but so I think it all starts with coaching. I think we need to reevaluate how we coach and what we allow the kids to do. Like, it shouldn't be, again, 12 months of the year. Gonna be doing like, I'm meeting with girls that are gonna be on the team for next year for U18 because it starts early, recruiting for the following year, and parents will be with their daughter and say, "So what's the plan for the summer?" And I says, "Well, I don't wanna see you guys at all. Like, at the end of the day, we're gonna be together for a long time." I said, "Don't take that the wrong way," and I'm a very honest coach. I'm at the age now, I'm just very honest with them, and I'm like, "Well, I don't wanna see you guys. I mean, I'll let you know what I think you need to work on, but maybe go and do another sport, play something else." I said, "Maybe we'll get together as a team once or twice, I said, "And maybe we'll just play soccer, or I'll teach you Gaelic football. I gotta teach you something else, but we're not getting together just to do hockey training." Because most of them, the majority of them are gonna either play spring hockey anyhow, they're all doing their own thing. They actually liked my response. They were like, "Okay," they like that, and again, a lot of them travel quite a bit to play for different teams as well, so for them to be able just to do the individual training at home, it makes more sense for them anyhow.
Your points are very valid, and they're ones that resonate certainly with me and with some of the other pro athletes or former pro athletes that I've had on this program. I think of one father whose son is now playing in the NHL, and he said, "We didn't allow our son to be on the ice in the summer," and he still hasn't ever been on a skating treadmill because they saw the value of multi-sport. You had the background where you could say with your own children, "No, we're not going to do this. We're going to give them a diversity of opportunity." I do think it takes courage on the part of parents. But you're right, it starts with the coaching. Why do you think, even though so many coaches know the value of multisport, that they are pressuring athletes and families to specialize so early?
I think they 'cause they see everybody else doing it, and they'll see that say the most successful teams, and then they wanna emulate what they're doing, and they just might be happening that's what they do. They train all year, they're together, I'm not too sure. But those teams are they just recruit the best players. Right? And women's hockey, you can there's no borders. You can play where you want. So they just recruit and I think parents wanna hear all that, like, "Oh, well, this is what we do, and and this is what we can do for you, and we train all year," and I think they just get sucked in, and what they see is they'll see other maybe their teammates that are really successful, are very talented hockey players, and then they wanna do what they're doing, and they're the ones that are doing all the extra, and then so then it's like it trickles down, it's a snowball effect, and it's like, "Well, then we should be doing that because they're that good." Or we should be doing that. And I think that's why. But I mean, who's going to listen to me sometimes, right? I mean, I just laugh. It's like, I get my opinion and they can do what they want with it. I don't try to sell them anything because that's not what I'm here for. I'm here just to develop the kids that want to play. And hopefully I'm doing it the right way. And I know I am for myself and what I believe in. And that's all that really matters.
Well, Geraldine, I think a lot of people will listen to what you have to say. I am of that belief, and I hope many will watch this program and take a lot from it. I do believe there's an audience out there, and I think that people just need some confidence behind them to make these decisions that you're talking about and not keep up with the Joneses or jump on the hockey treadmill. Jumpstart, which is such a fantastic organization in this country, they just released a report called The Value and Cost of Participation. And one of the things that it showed is that one third of Canadian families who were surveyed report stress about affordability with sport. They say that 25% of respondents are overwhelmed by the logistics, all of the different practices and games and tournaments that they have to get to. And one of my fears as a Canadian who, like you, is proud of the fact that we are one of the world powers in the sport of hockey is that we are going to price and practice people out of the game before they ever get started. And so we are going to shrink the pool of players before it even gets started. And we're going to lose players to other sports. And I think it's fine for our country to have sporting interests outside of hockey, believe me. But I also believe that anyone who wants to play the sport should be allowed to play the sport. Do you have the same fear about where we're headed with hockey right now?
Oh, absolutely. I to be honest, even like when I grew up playing and 5 kids in our family, we were just middle class. I don't even know how my parents afforded it back then. It wasn't even as bad as it is today. Absolutely, you're right. Like, but this is the pressure that the parents put on the kids because they do tell them, listen, I'm remortgaging the house or I'm doing this. You better perform. And the kids are like 10, 11 years old. They don't need that pressure, and this is where all the mental health starts to click in, and like you said, the stress, and I'm sure half of them don't even wanna play. I'm sure that's the parents want them, they want to live through their kids, and it's very unfortunate, but I totally agree with you that, that it's getting too costly. Everything's going up. Like a hockey stick, $400, and then they break. Like you could go through 3 of them. Like it's $1,200 for that, and that's not even your registration. Like I would say on average that I know it's probably 8 to $10,000 a year. And what if you have 3 kids, 4 kids playing it? So the affordability is unbelievable, and the kids that really need sport. can't afford it. The ones that need sport, not just be successful in it, but just to get them out of trouble, like, the lower income, housing, people living there, like, those kids need that. They need some structure, and maybe they'll fall in love with something, and, there's more to sport than being successful in it. There's a lot of life skills that you learn, and it's unfortunate the ones that really need it can't afford to have it.
Great points. And success in sport to me is not making it to a professional level or getting a university scholarship. It's all of those things that you just alluded to that we should be having our children get through sport, building self confidence, resilience, community, social skills. There are so many great things that come out of sport if we allow it to develop. Was that your approach as a parent as well? What did you want your children to get through sport?
Absolutely, I want them to get what I got out of it because, like I told you earlier there, my parents didn't even know what the game was, so I played because it was my passion and I loved it. I had to keep going after them, "Oh, why can't I play? I wanna play." And I was just very lucky that they were supportive at the time. So, I mean, with my kids, I always said, "Please don't do this because I did it," and I always emphasized that right from day one because who cares that I did it, right? If you love it, that's great. If not, let's find you something that you enjoy doing. And that's the one thing I really emphasize with them is find something that you enjoy doing. And both of my kids did eventually they played hockey and they did other sports as well, lacrosse, soccer, they tried all the different sports as well. But then when they were playing the higher level, it was more just hockey, and then they were doing some of the, high school sports as well, or and elementary sports, which was good, flag football or whatever. So it's kind of funny because the one thing that I think sport did for me was that I was a very shy kid growing up, and I would be in the back of the class, and I would never say a word. And then I was outside and I was running, you could hear me a mile away. So I remember my mom saying the teacher, brought her in, was very concerned about me because I was so shy and maybe you should bring her to the doctor and see if there's something going on there. My mom's like, she's fine. Cause I guess when I'm at home, I'm playing with my brothers, fighting with my brothers. So she knew everything was good, but just in the classroom, I guess it wasn't my comfort zone. I felt on the playing field, like, so then the teacher went outside and she hears all this screaming and she went over and she's like, and there was me in the middle. And it was all boys, obviously, at the time because the girls didn't play. And I just jumped right in with them and I was telling them where all to go. And that was where I it was my safe zone, my comfort zone. And it really helped me get me out of my shell. And I think that's one of the biggest things that it really helped me, and both my kids are kinda similar. They're a little more on the shy side, and so when I'm coaching and when I was coaching them, I always made sure that everybody got to lead, to give them all that opportunity to be leaders on the team, and I wouldn't have captains. I would, pass the captain around all the time, so everybody had a chance to be a leader and to be more involved with the team and to see who becomes good leaders. So with my kids, it was, my daughter continued on and she's, playing at the University of Carleton, which is great. She's having fun there. That's where she should be, and, she was probably lucky to get that far, but that's okay. I was happy for her because she really wanted it. My son, he was playing AAA all the way up. He had a few major injuries. He broke his arm, had surgery when he was only, like, 12. Then he dislocated his shoulder a couple of times, and he had shoulder surgery. So he missed a couple of years, and I said to him because of the injuries, I says, "Is buddy," like I used to say to my husband, I don't know if this is for him, right? Because as a parent, you don't wanna see that. But he was playing the high level and he was pretty good, and I'd say, "Bud, like, you sure you wanna do this?" And he's like, "Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah." And I would just say, "Okay, well, if you wanna, you have to take it serious. You're playing AAA." I was the parent that you have to dedicate it because if not, you can play there's places for you to play double A, single A, and just go play and have fun, which is great too. And no, I wanna play it. And then I could tell the following year, you just know your kids. I was like, I don't know if it's, he the thing was, I think he was good, and then I would ask him at the end of the year, you sure you still wanna do this?" I said, and he's like, "Well, yeah." I said, "Why don't you just take the summer, think about it?" Because he wasn't sure. He goes, "Well," like, you kinda him and hawed. I'm thinking, if you're him and hawed, like, you don't, and I said, "Take the summer and then think about it." And then he came back and he said, "Yeah, I do. I wanna play." So then he played another year and, he's, pretty successful, and then I could tell again, I'm like, "You sure?" And I think he was afraid to tell me, to be honest with you, and I think because he was good, he would always get called up with the AAA team above him to play, and I think he thought he should or had to. But I always, kept it open, "Bud, you don't have to do this, you don't have to do this." So he ended up he just he had junior teams looking at him, and he didn't care, and he decided to hang them up, and he's happy enough, and, I'm happy that he's happy, and I've always told him, I go, "Buddy, never want you to do it because," but I'm still glad that he got to play the game, and he did learn a lot of life skills through it, and he met a lot of great people, and he created a lot of great memories, and that's what it's all about as well.
Well, and as you say there, it should always be the child's choice. Look, when kids are 5, 6, 7 years old, obviously the parents are making the choice. They're just enrolling them in as many activities as possible. But that conversation that you had with your son along the way, even though he may have felt a pressure because of his skill level or perhaps because of his mom being such a successful player, he may have put that on himself, but you're trying to make sure he understands it's his choice. You spoke about coaching your daughter as well. We have a lot of parents out there who watch and listen who are in the same position. They coach their own children, and that can be a difficult balance. What was your approach when coaching your daughter? And did you ever find that there were challenges along the way?
Oh, 100% because, she's on the team because the coach is on the team. So I always made sure that when they asked me to coach, that you evaluate my kid and she or he, I did with both of them, they have to be in the top 5 or 6 on the team. I'm not having them on the team in the bottom part because then that's where you're gonna get issues. And if as long as the association agreed, I didn't care what anybody said anyhow. So I think the way I did it was I didn't give them everything. I was the opposite. I was like, "Okay," and I probably would do it a little bit differently now. I'd be like, "Okay, well, make sure I won't put them on the power play all the time, or I won't," even though they deserve it. I don't think I could give them a letter, and usually it's the other way around. The coach gives their kids the C, so I kinda did it the opposite way. But when I coached anyhow, I coached everybody, and everybody played. And both the teams, both my kids' teams were very successful, and that was why we were successful. They all played all 3 lines, everybody played. Yeah, maybe near the end of the game, you're pulling the goalie, you'll put certain players out, and that was it. But then you get parents complaining about that, and those are the parents of the top players, which you think, the ones that usually sit, parents are gonna complain about. But no, it was the ones that get all the ice time. "Well, you should have a power play one, PP1." "No. We're winning. Are we winning? Yeah, that's right. So, no, this is how we're being successful. I'm here to develop everybody." And then, of course, boys AAA hockey, right? Because 'Cause they're all going to the show. They, all the talk, well, they wanna leave because we're being successful, but she doesn't have a power play one or whatever, and little Johnny's not getting out there all the time. It's about developing all the kids, and this was at a young age. This wasn't even at, like, U15, U16. We're talking, like, U10, U11, where they should all be playing.
Of course they should. And if your North Star, I've said this many times on this podcast, but I'll say it again. If your North Star isn't as many as long as possible, I think you're doing it wrong in youth sports. We should be trying to keep kids in these environments as long as possible. Let their skill level fall where it ends up falling and let their desires take them where they want to go, not where their parents want to go. You mentioned some of the conflict, perhaps at times, about ice time that you encounter with parents. Was that generally the biggest issue, or were there other things that parents were approaching you about, or you had challenges with them about while you were coaching?
I would have to say the number one thing was parents coaching from the sideline. And sometimes you can actually hear them in the rink. It's like and it's kind of funny, and this was especially with my son's team, me being female coaching AAA hockey when I did. There wasn't really no other female coaches playing at that time, and I would have a parent yelling over saying something, and I yelled right back and said, "We're shorthanded," because I don't know what he said. He wanted his kid to go with the puck, and I yelled back, the whole rink could hear me, "We're shorthanded," and all my other parents were howling at it, and they would bug him all the time, and these parents, I would get along with them because they they didn't really say they never really came up to me and say anything because they know I'm gonna just tell them what I think, but you just hear it through the grapevine. But you can see it when I'm trying to coach about team, and they go home and they're being coached by their parents about, "Well, no, you need to do this. You should have went with this or just go with it." And it's like so that was probably the most difficult because the kids get it. Like, when I talk about the team and I say, "Guys, we all have to have a role in this team." And I would say, I would hear them talking about, "Oh, how many points did you get tonight, or did you get?" And I would hear that, and I'd go in, I go, "Hold on a second here. Who cares how many points you got?" I says, "Did we get 2 points? We're all wearing the same jersey." They go, "Yeah." I go, "Does it matter who scored all the goals or got the points?" I says, "How many goals does our goalie have?" They go, "Well, none." I go, "Well, is he an important part of this team?" "Yeah, he is. He's probably the most important, but you're all worried about your points." I said, "And the defense, they have to play in their own end a lot more than you guys because 'cause you're cheating to go get your points." They go, "They're pretty important too, and just because they're not getting the points." They so don't I don't wanna hear about points and how many goals you got in here because at the end of the day, we all got the 2 points. And I could tell they really got it at the young age. But then I know once they went out that door, it was like, "Well, you shoulda got this," or "I got whatever," and it's like and that's where it was very hard, but trying to keep the team concept in it and how we develop as a team. And then the parents just ruin it when they go home and then they come back and you'll see little spurts of what they're trying to do. And they're always looking up in the stands at their parents and they're giving them signals. And I would turn to the player. I said, "Stop looking at your dad. If you're going to look at him, just come sit down here." I said, "Because this isn't going to work." And like I said, I'm just like that as a coach, and I'm all over it a little bit. I feel bad for the kid because I know it's probably not them, but I'm hoping they go and tell the parent that.
Well, you bring up two things that I think are excellent tips and techniques for parents to keep in the back of their mind when they're taking their kid to their youth sports environment, whether it's hockey or any other sport. One, if you have a parent who's a person of authority and a coach who's a person of authority telling you two different things, plus all your teammates telling you where to go, it's like trying to drive a car with everybody telling you where to go at the same time. We've been in that situation and none of us like it. Imagine that for your child who is just learning. And the other point that you brought up from coaching is an excellent one as well. That coaches need to make sure players understand that they all have value, not through the stat sheet, but through their actions as to how they contribute to something that they are collaborating on together. And that's on coaches, not to say, oh, our MVP is so and so because he or she had this many points. No, you all have value. You all did things that contributed to what we're doing. And that's how we build self confidence through sport as well. You said earlier in this conversation, you think you might have been lucky because your parents knew nothing about hockey. Can you expand on that? Why do you believe that was an advantage?
Because I wanted to play because it was my passion, and I found something that I fell in love with. They didn't know what to tell me, so it was like they brought me to the rink, "Yeah, go ahead," and then go play and then come home, and, they loved watching, and they were learning the game as I was learning the game, so, they used to sit in the rinks by themselves, stay away from all the other parents talking and, probably, ripping in the other kids or whatever the other parents do, but 100% that helped me because I never had the pressure. There was no pressure for me to be successful because at the end of the day, when I think I talked about this before, my journey was all about timing for me. And I was very fortunate the timing that I started playing. And I was very fortunate that I got to play in the very first world championships, the very first Olympics. It was never there for me to try and achieve that goal because it just wasn't there. I just played because I absolutely loved the game, and I just wanted to be the best I could be because it was fun, and I was always a team player, always, wanted to help my teammates out, and that was probably because there was no pressure of, "Oh, you're gonna try out for the national team," or you're gonna play in pro hockey now, so but now it's changed. Maybe it would've been different now, but I'm glad that I played when I did because I definitely played for the right reasons.
So, if there was no pathway before you, we talked about the fact you're a pioneer in the sport. What was it that kept you in the sport when you obviously had other options because you were a strong player in a variety of sports growing up?
Yeah, I just fell in love with the game of hockey. I think it obviously was my number 1 sport. Like I said, I love the skating aspect of it, the speed of the game, the physical part of the game, and there's so many skills involved in the game. That's why I said for especially for hockey, being a multi-sport athlete definitely helped me because of all the different skills that are needed in the game. So I think it was just I just loved it. I just loved to compete. I used to go out and play. I'd be playing pickup hockey at 1 and 2 in the morning when I was older because that was really the only ice time I could get, and I loved it. And my brother played a little bit. He played a little bit of semi-pro down in the States and the East Coast, West Coast, and he would come up in the summers, and I'd be doing that, and he just looked at me. He goes, "You just love it, don't you?" And I says, "Yeah." He would go, "Okay, I'm going to go to the gym. I need to bench press this to do pass the fitness testing. I'm done." So he had a different, thought process. He was doing it just to play down there and make a little bit of money, and I was doing it because and I remember him just looking at me, he goes, "You just love it." I'm like, "Yeah, I do," and I still enjoy it.
Well, and I think if parents observe their children, whether it's sport or writing or acting or whatever it happens to be, they'll see that. They will see what their children actually love instead of predetermining, here's what I think you'll love, or you must love it because your friends love it. But they do have to step back and observe. I know this is a loaded point to bring up, but we've had other guests bring it up. And I get the sense you feel the same way that parents are maybe around a little bit too much. If you were to give advice to other parents, how can they find that balance between they want to be supportive for their children and they want to see them enjoy what they're doing, and yet they don't want to cross that line and be overbearing? How would you advise them to do that?
Just drop them off and pick them up when they're done. Don't go in the rink. I don't know, it's so hard because I truly believe these parents want it more than the kids, most of them, the ones that you really need to talk to. There's ones out there that, they're good parents. They just bring them they know what level that they should be playing at. But like I said, it'd be nice if, you know what, parents weren't allowed in the ranks. Maybe, I mean, it's unfortunate, but this is the way we're going. I mean, you look at the fights in the stands now with parents, like, it's unbelievable, like, it's just this generation is it's just crazy, and, it's really sad to see, and, I mean, I'm being just kind of funny, drop them off, take them up, but maybe for practices, you could do that. But games, I mean, maybe you can stay at home and watch it online or something like that, but, they're gonna hear about it when they get home, but like you said, it's the choice of the parent, and I guarantee you the parents that are like that, that's how they parent in general. Like, it's not just I think that, as a parent, they parent the way they parent, and that's the way they're gonna treat them, with sports. Like, you need to be successful in this, you need to make so much money. I don't know, like, and that's probably how they parent, and they're probably strict that way that they I don't know, it's a very I wish I had an answer for it. I think the biggest thing probably it'd be nice if they dropped them off and then picked them up when they're done and just asked, "Hey, did you have fun?"
I agree with you. And it's the advice I give a lot of parents as well. I understand the counter argument that, hey, in many cases, it's inconvenient because, as we talked earlier, the logistics of sports, sometimes parents are driving 45 minutes, an hour and a half just to get their child to a practice, and they're not going to turn around, try to go home and come back. So I understand that there are times they feel as though there's nowhere else to go. And yet, I feel like they should try to find some community with other parents and maybe go for a walk. Or if they're going to be in the facility, maybe just don't pay attention. Maybe easier said than done, but I'm with you. And that's advice that other former athletes have given as well when it comes to parents being too involved. I think the other thing that shows up, and you referenced it earlier, it's so expensive and people are paying so much money, they believe there's this return on investment that needs to come through their child, through winning or through their own personal ascension through the sport. I believe you see it show up in the stands when they're yelling at other parents or when they're yelling at referees, and that transfers to the kids. Do you see those problems in the environments you've been in over the last number of years coaching?
Oh, 100%, like you just mentioned, and I mentioned it earlier too, that all these parents, they think either they're gonna make pro or they're all gonna get scholarships, and I would laugh and I would turn to them sometimes and say, "Well, you've already paid for their scholarship over and over again with all the extra training and registration, like, you didn't need to do that." And then a lot of them just wanna say, like, when I talk to kids that are looking to go to Division III schools down in the States, "Okay, why are you going there?" Canadian university, you probably wouldn't make a Canadian university hockey team right now, but you're gonna go down there just to say, and you're gonna pay more money. You're paying for it down there. It's not a full ride, but parents just wanna say, "Oh, my daughter's down in the States playing hockey, university hockey." It's like, "Okay," but really at the end of the day, nobody cares. I mean, I doesn't as long as the kid's happy, I guess, but you're going a long way, and you're paying a lot of money when you have really good education up here in Canada that you could be paying for. So I think they've paid for it over and over again, and I don't have any problem saying that to parents, and once they say about they wanna play Division III, I'm like, "Well, that's a waste." There's other opportunities up here that they could probably pursue and get a better education up here in Canada. But I think one of the biggest things is that these parents have unrealistic expectations for their kids. Even in the minor hockey, like, they push their kids to play AAA, and really they're an A-level kid. And with most coaches, well, they're not gonna play. They're not well, you're gonna sit on the bench and just say that you're playing AAA and you're gonna pay all that money. Like, just play A hockey, and then once you're successful there, and make the move a little bit slower. Like, the kid's gonna have more fun when he's being able to contribute to the team and not just be sitting there and having to cheer them on, and then you go home and you're not playing, and they're not gonna have fun. So, I think they need to be realistic at where their kid is at, and at the end of the day, some of these kids are never gonna make it. I mean, it's hard to say because even on the team I'm helping out with right now, it's like I'm like, "Wow," like and the parents will ask me, "Well, what more can my kid do?" And I'm almost ready to tell the parent, I go, "Doesn't really matter what she does. She just doesn't have it. Just let her have fun. Don't worry about it." And I kinda almost get it out sometimes. I think that's really bad, but I just say, "Well, more is not always, better." And it was funny because the girls were in a tournament this weekend and they played like 5 games in like three days, and after we had lost in the semis, and they had last night off, and they're back on the ice tonight again. I think they're gonna be on for another 4, and I said, "Guys, take tomorrow off." I go, "Don't do anything. Go to school. Don't do anything. I don't want any 6 AM skill sessions." And because I know which ones when, like, they'll go at 6 AM for skills before school, and then they go to hockey for their team practices after school. And these are kids that I'm gonna tell you aren't going anywhere, but parents are putting them in it. And I'm just like, "Guys," I says, "You know what? More is not better." I says, "You need recovery is a huge part of development." And it's not being on the ice 7 or 8 or 9 times a week, and there's only 7 days in a week, and a lot of them are.
Well, and redefining success within the sport to me is a big part of the equation. People need to realize that having a child who ends up being a 45-year-old rec hockey player because she loves the sport still and wants to be involved is just as much of a win as someone who does make the national team because we're all skilled at different things. But losing that love for sport and having that burnout, that is the risk you run. I had the good fortune of seeing you at Hockey Helps the Homeless in Vancouver. And one of the points you made when you were on stage, I thought was fascinating that you see such highly skilled players now because of what you talked about, the development sessions and all the
Yeah.
skill coaches,
Oh,
but
yeah.
you see a lot of players who don't understand the game in the same way, and part of it has to do with not watching the game. Can you expand on that and how that perhaps hurts development for young players?
No, oh, absolutely. I'm so high on that. It's, like, even the girls' team I'm helping out with, there's none of them have not I would say one player on the team might have a tiny bit of hockey sense, but they're all pretty skilled. And because they're all working on that individual, and I'll ask them, "Do you guys watch hockey?" And none of them really do. They watch the YouTube videos and all the just, dangles and all the goals, and I keep telling them, "If you" and they'll ask me, "What do I need to do to get better?" I go, You need to watch hockey, but when you're watching it, watch it correctly. Watch your position when they don't have the puck. Where are they? Where are they to support? What are they doing?" And anticipating what's gonna happen. And I said, "And then try that in a game. Take that, try to teach yourself." And that's why I think I understand the game so well, because I had to teach myself. It was either I taught myself or I'd probably have fallen behind. And I was able to do that. We do video with the girls, and it's like, "Okay, so we're gonna watch video," and, okay, so we'll watch and ask them what they see and whatever. And most of them can't take the video onto the ice. They have a hard time when I draw a drill on the board on the ice. So most of them think they need to go 1,000 miles an hour in the drills, and they can't handle the puck and they can whatever. And I'm like, "Guys, slow it down. It's called controlled skating." Like, this is why I'm really trying to emphasize when I do a drill, this is when you would use it in a game. Visualize this. And it's even boys. I don't think boys watch hockey as much either anymore. It's not just the girls. I think it's everybody. I think I'm the only one. My husband laughs at me all the time. Anything's on, "Oh, she's watching I don't know what hockey now," right? So because I love it, right? So my kids, they watched a tiny bit, but they didn't watch enough either. They didn't have the interest to. There's too many other things going on. There's too much video games, I guess, or they're out doing all their individual training. They don't have time to watch, or they're sick of it. Maybe they're sick of it. And then, like we talked about earlier, maybe, they don't want to watch it anymore. They've seen enough. They've been on the ice, and it's going to lead to burnout and kids quitting at an earlier age.
And no one's going to sit here and say your child has to sit down and is mandated to watch a hockey game or a soccer game or a basketball game. No one's going to say that. It should be a part of that love where they gravitate to it on their own. And yes, parents facilitate that and families facilitate that, that it can become a fun sporting event to sit around and watch together. But ultimately, the child has to drive it. The other thing I think parents would complain about what they're doing in their time, probably scrolling on their device. Social media is not something I grew up with. It's not something you grew up with, but it's here now. We've watched it for our own children. My kids are on the precipice of that happening, but they're not quite there yet. I'm sure you see it with the kids you coach, and you've seen it with your own children along the way. It's become a significant factor in youth sports. What effect do you have social media having on young athletes today?
Well, I guess there's always a positive effect in certain ways, but I think there's definitely more negative in the sense that I'm not even on social media, so I don't even know really what goes on half the time. So people have to tell me, and I kind of like it that way. But from what I hear, like there's too many platforms out there where people can go on anonymously and they say what they want, and it's the sad part of it. It's parents will go on and these platforms and they're ripping kids and it's sad, and these kids are reading it, and then there's kids are going on and they're bullying other kids on other teams. We just had an incident that got brought up in our association that one kid was sending death threats to a kid on another team that had to play, and they had to get the association involved and show up and tell that kid she can't play on the other team, and these girls are, like, 12 years old. Like, I just think that it's these people are gutless. Put your name on there if you have something to say and let the parents deal with it, but I just think they should all stay off social media when it comes to sport. I know with, like, the national team and stuff now, like, especially with World Juniors and stuff, when they lose, the guys, they're getting ripped by everybody, and they're told, "Stay off of it." People are mean, and it's not nice, and social media lets it get out there, and I don't know what the answer would be. I don't think these platforms should be allowed, but for some reason they are, and they're out there. I don't have an answer for that. Alls I can say is to tell the most of them, "Just stay off of it. Who cares what anybody else thinks?" I used to tell my kids that all the time. I don't care what anybody else thinks, but that's hard to do. When you're younger and you're vulnerable, like, you're probably gonna care. When you get older like us, we don't care anymore, so, at the end of the day, it is what it is, right? So, but I think it's harder said than done.
You're absolutely right. And yes, there are some positive benefits of connection and discovery that occur through these platforms, but there is the downside that you mentioned, and that eats away at the self confidence of young people whose world is their social circle, and that world gets expanded by social media. It becomes a constant vehicle for comparison as well. You might think you're doing well, and you see someone's highlight package, and all of a sudden, you may think less of yourself because you're comparing yourself to people around the world, which is not something we had to deal with when we were growing up. You mentioned it earlier, mental health, and I do think it can have a detrimental effect. And I do believe it can have a detrimental effect on the mental health of young people. As a coach now and as a parent, how prevalent is the mental health conversation in youth sports with the girls that you are coaching right now?
So, the girls I'm only helping out with a U15 AA team right now, so I'm not there all the time. I was part-time, and next year's where I'm taking the U18 AA team. I'm not, that familiar a lot with mental health, and I'll be kind of honest here. I don't have a lot of background on the mental health part. I do watch, like, with my kids too. I think they're fine, like, I'm pretty sure they're pretty good. Hopefully, I would notice if not. I keep the communication open with them all the time, just like I said when I was thinking my son didn't wanna play anymore, like, "You don't need to do this," like, and I think with the team and with the girls, I would just wanna keep open conversations with them and m make them feel like they can come to me about anything, and they're part of my team, and they're like family to me, and I'll support them any way I can.
Well, I do believe that is the biggest part of this is creating an environment where people feel comfortable to actually talk about how they truthfully feel, as you just mentioned. Obviously, mental health and the conversation was not out in the open the way it is now when you were coming along, but who were the coaches or perhaps even other players who created the right environment that you could have honest conversations when you were coming up along the way, and those coaches who helped get you to the level you ultimately ascended to?
Well, I had one coach for over 20 years. So, Ken Dufton was, he coached me from when I was 13 years old right till I finished playing hockey, so up to 35. I just think it was a different generation. Like you said, it was never talked about. I didn't even know anything about the mental health when I was growing up. Again, maybe that was better. I don't know. For myself personally, now there could be other people in different situations that, needed some help. I don't think I did, but maybe I did. I don't know, right? So because it wasn't an issue or wasn't talked about, it probably was an issue, but never talked about like it is today, like you said. I think the generation is so different. So my dad was more stricter in the sense how, if we did something wrong, you were going to be punished for it kind of thing. I would have to say my coach, Ken, probably he came from boys hockey. And when he came to the Arrows where I played all my whole career in minor hockey, never moved, he coached us like boys, the old style, and which I liked, and I think I thrived off that. So it'd be more a little bit more of the yelling that I guess they don't like today. But I think it wasn't really yelling at you. It wasn't I don't think it's really negative. I think in the atmosphere of being in a hockey rink, you have to yell to get it across because 'cause you're down at the other end of the rink or he'll stop it. And that might not have worked for everybody, but I definitely feel it worked for me. I would always be hard on myself. He was always hard on me, probably because I was one of the better players, or times he would use me as an example. We got into a lot of arguments, but I mean, when you're together that long, you're going to agree to disagree. But at the end of the day, he got involved with girls hockey because he loved it. And I think he was one of the very first coaches that took women's hockey seriously. I truly believe he should be recognized and, maybe even the Hockey Hall of Fame for what he contributed to the game. But a lot of those people aren't really talked about. But he put women's hockey on the map. He put the Arrows. Our Arrows team was because of Ken Dufton and Colin McKenzie. Those were the two guys that drove the sport and pushed other associations to take it as serious as we did. And obviously, which helped the whole league get better. So I guess I thrived off the tough love, I guess, if you want to say. But that was just the generation back there. It's the way the parents were allowed to parent or parented, and the coaches kind of coached that way as well.
Yeah, it was a different time, and I understand your point between being loud because you need to get a message down to the other end of the gym or the rink and yelling in a condescending manner. Those are 2 different things, and one of them has absolutely no place in sport in my mind, but what you said in the middle of that answer, I think, really resonates with me is that when you show kids or the people you are coaching that you care about them as people first, they will ask you to challenge them. They want to be challenged, and they will demand you challenge them as opposed to the other way around. How do coaches establish that with their players? Because I get the sense based on what you said in this conversation that you feel the same way, that you have to show the girls you're coaching or the boys you're coaching that you care about.
Yeah, it's pretty hard. And like I said, with the level of hockey that I'm coaching and the team I'm helping, some of these girls aren't at that level, but they're on the team, and that's fine. So you work with what you have. And I'll just use this a bit of an example. On the weekend, there's just one girl, I don't even think she wants to play hockey. But this is AAA, so I'm only an assistant. I will, help out. I will work with the D mostly. And the one girl never listens, and she always has an answer. And I'm always like, "Okay, I'm just not gonna bother with her because I just can't because I'm too competitive. I'm just gonna just it's best if I leave it alone." But I can't because I want her to improve too. So she comes off and I said, "Listen, if you wanna listen, this is what you should be done." And then she just right away starts, like, rolling her eyes, and she's, like, already giving me attitude. And I'm like, "Okay, I better not," 'cause I don't wanna say something that I'll regret. So I'm like, "Okay, then, just don't worry about it." If you want my help, you can ask me." And then she gets upset. She does the usual thing, and I let it go for a bit. And then, of course, I think it's the parent in you too. I pull her aside, and the game before, we had great conversations. She played well. I go, "Listen, I'm not meaning being mean to you. I'm just trying to correct you, but a lot of times you're not listening." I said, "You know, you're playing a great game." I said, "But you need to listen and just let me speak. You always have an answer." I said, "Did we had more fun yesterday when we were joking around. Did you not have more fun yesterday playing?" I said, "Well, let's do that again." And so, I dealt with it right away because I feel bad for her too. But again, she shouldn't be playing at that level. I'm not going to say that to the kid, but the parents put her at to me, the wrong level. And I'll be honest with you, she doesn't want to play hockey. 100%, I know that, and that's very hard because it affects the rest of the team. And then how do you deal with that? So I try to deal it as best as I can, and then move on.
Well, and I think that's what most parents out there are trying to do, deal with most of this the best they can and not necessarily move on from their kids. But I do think that their intentions, unfortunately, because of all the factors you mentioned earlier, get a little bit clouded along the way. If you're giving advice to parents out there in youth sports who are feeling pressure, whether it's through cost or logistics or that pressure to keep up with other families so that they've got that extra A on their jacket instead of just a single A. What advice would you give in terms of letting your child lead as opposed to being led by the masses?
Well, I tell a lot of the parents because and I do skills development. I don't help myself because I'm telling them not really to come to me because I know how expensive it is and I know what it took my parents to put us involved in hockey. One of the biggest issues in women's hockey is shooting. They don't have the quick release. They don't have the hardest shot. You can do that at home. Like, your kid should wanna just go out in the driveway. I told my kids, "Go out, I'll never send you to a shooting coach. You wanna go out, there's a bucket of pucks there. You got a net. Go out and shoot. Repetition, repetition, repetition." I said, "Don't go and pay for all that." Like, that's one of the biggest issues there. Training. I can give you an off-ice training program. You don't need to go to a gym and have a personal trainer, which a lot of them do. I go, "There's programs right here. You can do all this stuff at home." So with those parents that can't afford it, there's ways of really cutting back. And I know when I coach and I put together our budget, I try to make it as minimal as possible for them so they can play. I don't make them buy like every year new jerseys. Same, well, it's the same one I got. It still fits. Why do I need a new? Oh no, you need a new one. It's in the budget, the team budget. Well, no, I'll put all that stuff not the team budget. If you need it, you need to purchase it yourself. So I really and if you have a hockey bag already or a backpack, my daughter had about 6 backpacks of the same one because every year she had to buy a new one. Well, what did she need another one for? And I just think it's a lot of wasted money, to be honest with you. They don't need all that. What they need is just get them on the ice. They need the practice. When you need the ice time, I understand that. We don't need to bring in all these development people. Okay, the coaches are there for a reason. Like but parents some parents want it, and then the other ones have to pay for it. So it's very hard, but there's a lot of things that you could cut back on and not really lose out. And the ones that do that, like I said, if they're gonna go for a run on their own, they're gonna go out and shoot in their own. Those are the ones that want it. The ones that don't have to be sent to like, they won't do it unless it's structured or it's run by somebody, and that's the majority. Is if there's not a shooting session, well, I'm not going out to shoot. I should be going to shooting sessions or right? And it's all structured for them, and you have to go pay for it. So, to me, if the kid really wants it, there's a lot of extra stuff they can be doing on their own, and there's a lot of YouTube videos that you can do training at home. They show you how to do all this training, McDavid dryland training over sticks. Watch it and just do it.
I know this is a difficult question to answer because I've asked many people and we've discussed a number of them throughout the course of this conversation, but I will ask it anyway. What is the biggest issue that you see in youth sports today, Geraldine?
I'm gonna say the overtraining and burnout, I think, and then which leads to quitting. And I you don't need to be like I said, some are on the ice more than 7 days a week. They're on, in the morning and in the evening. I just totally believe that the kids are totally overtrained in the same sport, which leads to burnout and injuries as well.
So, on the other side of that, despite the fact that there are numerous issues in today's youth sports environment, I stay in it, you stay in it, and we want our kids to be a part of it because we see value there. Why are you so passionate about youth sports? And ultimately, what do you want children to get through youth sports that will benefit them in their adulthood?
Well, the one thing, especially at the younger age, I just love seeing them go out and having fun. You know, you just throw, even if it's ice hockey, throw a ball out there, let them chase it around, and just seeing them have fun and seeing them how they react in a team atmosphere when they haven't been in one before, and how they get along, and you give them little tasks and see how they work together, and those are all life skills, and that's what you want them to learn is how do you work as a team. What does it take to be hard work. How do you deal with adversity when, say, you lose games or whatever. How do you deal with that? Commitment, time management. There's so many life skills that's what should be important for them. And I think the biggest thing too is you're going to create a lot of great lifelong friendships that all my friends are from sport and from when I played, and great memories. And I think that's probably the biggest thing that I would want my kids to take away from sport and coaching now. Like, I always talk to the team before games or after games. I go, guys, it's not about winning on the ice, that you remember. It's about the dressing room. It's about, do you remember when we did this? Oh, yeah, I remember when we went out as a team for dinner or we went bowling or this happened or that happened. And it's the same at the national level with Team Canada. I never talk about winning gold. I go, "Do you remember what we did afterwards? Do you remember that?" Or so those are the memories that you wanna create, and they're lasting memories, and the friendships are gonna be there forever.
Well, anyone who's played any level of sport knows that, and they have those great memories that they cherish as long as they had a good experience. We had the good fortune of watching you create some of those memories on the ice from afar, and it's sport that has brought us here together again today. Geraldine, thank you very much for this. I'm really thankful that you spent the time with us here on Better Sports Parents.
Oh, no, thanks for having me. That was great.
I hope you enjoyed this episode and you found some tangible takeaways that you can bring with you in your journey to becoming a better sports parent. The best way for you to support this podcast is for you to subscribe, follow, rate, review, and drop us a comment on whichever platform you're watching or listening. And the fastest way for us to grow this podcast and reach more parents out there is for you to share it with your respective networks and to tell people that you see at your youth sporting events when you're there with your children. Big thanks to Lightstock Music and Andre Diaconou for the music on this podcast, which is a production of Toolkit Content. Until next time, happy sports parenting. And remember, have fun out there. That's what it's supposed to be about.